everybody. Happy afternoon. Sorry that this video is much later than normal. We had several unexpected calls and the audio for my video from yesterday didn't save, so here we are again. I'll try to keep it brief. Today we're going to be talking about the skill stop and jot. And it is one that we've practiced before. It is one that we're focusing on nonfiction texts right now, but with the idea that this stop and jot skill could be used during a chapter book that you're reading, or during an article or a nonfiction text. So it can be used in different varieties. Basically, when you're doing a stop and jot, what it is you're thinking about that this is something interesting. This is something that I want to remember. And what it allows you to do is it causes you to stop in the middle of your reading. You don't wait until you finish the whole entire book to then go back and stop and jot. What you want to do is it's actually, as I'm reading, I find something entertaining, something that's interesting, something that's funny, something that I connect to, something that I'm wondering about, and I stop, I pause what I'm doing, immediately in reading, I'm thinking about the text, which means I'm comprehending the text, which means I'm really paying attention to what's happening, and I'm jotting it down. So it's giving my brain a time to stop and think about it, and then think about it further as I'm writing it down, which is going to help me remember it later even more. I can also go back and reference it instead of having to go find the page or find the exact spot. If I have that sticky note ready to go, I can say, oh, that's where it was. What we were doing with these facts is we called them collecting facts at the time, and we put them all on that big poster. A lot of you guys carried on that tradition as you were reading nonfiction. You just had sticky notes all over your book. So what we're going to do with this stop and jot is we're going to collect them and put them in one place. That way we can reference them. You can even put down the page number if you want to, so that you remember where you found the fact or where you found it most interesting. But what you really want to do is you stop and think. If I've learned something new that I find really interesting or important, I want to stop, I want to write it down, I want to remember it. If I see an important image, remember last week we talked about how the images in our text can support the learning that's going on, and we can learn so much more from our text with those illustrations, with those diagrams, with those maps, all those things. So maybe it's just I want to study that part. I want to study the map. I want to study the book and pay attention to that, and write down something that I learned from that. We also talked last week about how sometimes one article or one book is not going to give us all the information we need. Or if we're reading a chapter book and we're wondering about something, maybe I wonder why he did that, or I wonder why the character chose to do that, or why was she feeling that way? Or if we're talking about it in terms of a nonfiction text, we were talking about chickens last week and it talked about that comb and it talked about how it keeps them cool. Well, that made me wonder something. So as I was wondering it, I might jot it down on a sticky note so that way I can remember to go back and find out more about it later. Sometimes it's when we encounter a new word. Maybe it's a word that we don't know and we want to look it up and see what it means and the glossary doesn't have it, or we're just curious about it. That might be something. Sometimes if we finish a certain box or a section, we just want to focus on that one part, we can stop and jot. Or maybe we have a reaction to something. Maybe it makes us say, oh my gosh, that was such a scary moment in that book. I felt totally scared when the character was waiting to see if the alligator was going to chomp. Maybe I want to remember how I felt during that moment. Or maybe it makes me have an idea. Maybe it makes me think, oh, you know what, that would be cool. That'd be really cool to build a fort like that, or that'd be really cool. I definitely want to try that sometime. Write it down, jot it. That will help you remember it. So for today's activity, it has you selecting at least 6 facts. If you have more than that, definitely go for it. Definitely do that. Take the time, stop and jot. Figure out what you're doing, what's your topic, what are you excited about. I'm going to do one on insects here, and I will share with you. Insects that I'm always fascinated with are the honeybees, and I think that bees get such a bad rap because of their stingers, right? So as a kid, I was scared of bees, and I still kind of am as an adult. You see one and you're like, just, stay away from me. Don't sting me. I'm not here to hurt you. But I would love to learn more about honeybees, and eventually something that I would love to have is the Savannah Bee Company, which is from Georgia, so they're from Savannah, and they have a couple stores here in Atlanta now. They have a program where you could actually have a bee colony at a school. So I thought that that would be a really cool idea somewhere down the line, or maybe just have a bee colony here in my backyard, and we could produce honey and just help the species thrive, because they are a species that are not considered endangered, but there's a lot of movements going around about saving the bees to try to make sure that people are aware that pesticides and things like that are killing them. So I chose on Pebble Go, I chose to read this article. It's kind of in more of a book format than an article, but it is still that, about honeybees. So honeybees are flying insects. Their bodies have black and yellow stripes. Female honeybees have stingers. And that is something that I'm going to jot down. So I have my sticky notes right here, and I'm going to stop and jot female honeybees have stingers. I didn't know that. I would have thought that all the bees had stingers, but that's good to know that only the female honeybees have stingers. So I'm going to stop, jot that down. It's going to help me remember that fact for later. Honeybees are about 0.5 inches, which is only half an inch, meaning they're not very large at all. Honeybees are found wherever flowers grow. A colony of honeybees lives in a hive. A colony has a queen bee and worker bees. I always think that their pictures are so beautiful looking at those honeycombs. So I could stop and I could write that down about their honeycombs, and what do I notice about them? I notice the colors, I notice the shape of them, I notice how symmetrical they are. Some look like they're filled with honey, some look like they're not filled with honey. So I could pause and write down a whole bunch of facts or observations, interests that I find. All right, so I've got a couple things written down there. Going on to their food. Worker bees gather nectar and pollen from flowers. They bring it back to the hive and turn it into honey. The entire colony eats the honey. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the bees eat their honey. I knew that they were, I always assumed that they were eating the nectar that they were collecting. So that's something that maybe I'm still I need to ask myself a question. I'm kind of wondering about that. Let me write something down. I'm curious about whether they also eat the nectar or they only eat the honey. So I'm going to write that down. All right, moving on to their life cycle. Honeybees go through metamorphosis. Larvae hatch from eggs, and the larva grows into a pupa, and a pupa becomes an adult in about a week. Honeybees live up to 6 months. So they don't have a very long lifespan. That might be a fact that I want to remember. I also might want to, I'm curious about metamorphosis. I didn't realize that bees went through a metamorphosis phase. So I might want to do some more research on that. This image here kind of shows what some of the different stages look like, and maybe I don't feel like this picture is giving me a whole lot of information that I need to know, so maybe I want to do some more digging on that later. I can also click on that word if I don't know what that word means. So if it's red on Pebble Go, I can click that and find some more information about it. And then I always love the fun facts here, because it's usually going to be some things that you don't know. Like a honeybee hive may hold up to 60,000 bees. That's a lot of bees. That's definitely something I want to stop and jot down. Things here, it says there's only one queen bee in a hive, and the queen bee lays thousands of eggs. So there's a lot of information in this short article. I can click read more, and we'll have more about insects, ants, or some books that I can check out. So here's one that would be great for me to play and watch more about the honeybees. Which I will close for now. So then there's also sometimes there will be, we can see if you ever have to cite where you got it, this will tell you the article, this will tell you where you can find it, what day you accessed it. You can find the article and print it. There's also sometimes some activities that go along with it. So if I open that up, it will have there's my honeybee. I can try to label the parts on it. So that might be a good resource that you would want to share. Share what you know, draw a picture of a honeybee, my favorite thing. So it just is another way for you to collect that information in a different way. So I could take all the facts that I've written down and then put them into a form that would help me have the information in a more report style or professional style. There's also sometimes videos on your insect of choice or your Lou woke up from his nap to that sound. He was so confused. So I hope you guys are exploring. Excuse me, Lou, just a second. I hope you guys are exploring insects and taking this project in a fun way. And then we'll talk a lot more about it tomorrow. Just use different resources that you're comfortable with. I referenced National Geographic in the other one, and there's tons and tons of articles there. Pebble Go has tons. So if I go back to insects, there's tons of information given on different types of insects. So I hope you guys are enjoying. I hope you're having fun, and share with me what you have found. Share with me what you're creating, and I'll talk to you soon.